Hello and welcome to this two-part webinar series on the Eurocodes in Ireland, brought to you by the NSAI. My name is Ken Murphy, and over the course of this series I'm going to explain what the Eurocodes are, what is currently happening in the Eurocodes, and how you can get involved. In part 1 of this series we looked at the Eurocodes in detail and the revision of the codes which is currently underway. In this part I will explore how Irish construction sector experts help advise the NSAI on the Eurocodes and how you can get involved and what the benefits of participating in an NSAI committee are. In part 1 of this series, I went into detail about the purpose of the Eurocodes. In summary, the Eurocodes aren't just design standards. Their function is to support the European internal market and help the free movement of products and engineering services throughout Europe through the Construction Products Regulation and the Public Procurement Directive. Nationally, they are a way of proving compliance with Irish building regulations where they apply and are referred to in the Department of Housing's technical guidance documents, in particular Part A. Now, the Eurocodes have been formally in place for 10 years now, but in 2010, when there was choice allowed through the Nationally Determined Parameters, or NDPs, Ireland chose to adopt almost 2/3 of the recommended values which were set out in the Eurocodes at the time, and they chose these as national values to be used for structural design in Ireland. But where we do deviate from the recommended values in the Eurocodes, these values are addressed in our National Annex, NA, in which specific national requirements are set out in the NDPs. Further to the national annexes, additional guidance in the form of NCCI is also made available where it's applicable. Now, if you want a brief explanation as to the purpose of national annexes and NCCI, please listen back to part 1 of this series where I talk about them in more detail. In Ireland, Eurocode 6, the Masonry Design and Detailing Code, is a perfect example of where you have an Irish National Annex and National Supporting NCCI in the form of SR 325, Recommendations for the Design of Masonry Structures in Ireland to Eurocode 6. So who develops the national documents and make the decisions on what the national values for NDPs should be? While the NSAI is responsible for publishing the national annexes and NCCI, it is a pool of national experts which are critical to the development of these documents. They are the ones that support the NSAI in this work, and they do so by getting involved in the NSAI's technical committee, NSAI TC 15. The NSAI TC 15's function and the role of its members is to advise on the technical content of the Eurocode standards, in particular for our national annexes. The members also monitor the development work of the second generation Eurocodes, which was covered in part 1 of this series, and the committee members do this by mirroring the work of the European Standardization Technical Committee, CEN TC 250. Members attend CEN TC 250 meetings and represent Ireland's interests at those meetings. This is an important role as it gives Ireland a voice at the table during the discussions as to the Eurocodes development. And as the second generation Eurocodes progress, this technical committee will have to assess the impact of the changes on our NDPs and our national annexes and the possible need for calibration studies to determine national values. But who are the members of NSAI TC 15? Well, they are all individuals like you, so I'll briefly explain what the representation of the TC is like. As with all NSAI technical committees, balanced stakeholder representation is required to ensure that all sides of the debate are captured and that the technical content of the standard reflects the needs of all stakeholders within the respective industry. Participation is on a voluntary basis, but one point I'd like to make at this juncture is that the NSAI does not charge people for getting involved in standards development here in Ireland. This cannot be said of the majority of national standards bodies across Europe, who do charge you and still expect you to give your time freely. Now, membership of NSAI TC 15 includes individuals from industry, trade associations, academics and researchers in our colleges and universities, and government departments and agencies. The committee is chaired by Mr. Jim Mansfield of Kavanagh, Mansfield and Partners, and I am its technical secretary. The structure of the NSAI TC 15 consists of an overarching consultative committee with 7 subcommittees covering Eurocode 1 for actions on structures and Eurocode 7 for geotechnical design, as well as the Eurocodes for the 4 materials most commonly used in Ireland in the construction industry, in particular concrete, timber, steel and masonry. Finally, we have a horizontal group on the bridge-specific parts within the Eurocodes as well. To date, there has been limited interest or participation in Eurocode 8 for seismic design for obvious enough reasons, but also with Eurocode 4 composite materials of steel and concrete, and Eurocode 9 for aluminium. New members and construction industry experts who are willing to join the NSAI TC 15 and its subcommittees are always very, very welcome, and now more so than ever, as the workload for the second generation Eurocodes increases and our national annexes will need to be revised. In particular, guidance on how to address a number of Eurocodes are needed, especially the fire-specific parts and the new Eurocodes on the assessment of existing structures, structural glass, and actions on structures due to icing and waves and currents. Now, I mentioned how the NSAI does not charge for membership, unlike the majority of other NSBs. But there are a number of other benefits for getting involved, which you might consider and factor in as part of any cost-benefit analysis exercise you might do if you were debating whether or not to get involved. These benefits would include gaining an early understanding of upcoming changes to the standards and to be in a better place to adapt to the new codes when they are published. This would put you in a better position as well to design and price projects to the new Eurocode requirements. Membership would also afford you the opportunity to raise any needs or concerns you might have, allowing you to highlight potential issues you foresee with implementing the new codes, or seek clarity and the opportunity to rectify issues with current design approaches. You'll be able to influence the development of the standards in the construction sector, allowing you the ability to highlight and inform the committee of state-of-the-art practice in the sector, which should be included in the codes, our national annexes, or indeed NCCI documents. It would also allow you to increase your networking opportunities both nationally and internationally, and finally, work in the area of standards development is recognised as a way of demonstrating your continued professional development. Now, if getting involved directly is something you'd like to do, you can apply online via visiting the site on the screen here, or by simply Googling NSAI Get Involved. There, you can register to get involved in the Eurocodes, and I will follow up with you once I have received your application. Of course, if you feel that getting directly involved is not something you're in a position to do right now, you can still participate and gain access to the draft Eurocodes through the NSAI's Your Standards, Your Say website. All of the Eurocodes will be issued for public consultation, and this is known as formal inquiry. They will be published on the Your Standards, Your Say site, and you will have the opportunity to review, download, and comment on the drafts. You can find the website by searching NSAI NEP in Google. The formal inquiry drafts of the second generation codes are actually being issued now, and the strategy is to issue drafts in batches biannually in March and September each year over the next 3 years. Any comments you submit on any of the drafts will be given to the NSAI TC 15 committee for consideration as part of the Irish submission to the drafts in question. Finally, for further information on the Eurocodes and on research into their use, please visit the European Commission's Joint Research Centre website. It is an extremely informative site and provides a significant amount of background detail on the Eurocodes. On the development of the Eurocodes within CEN, or for other European standards in general, you can visit the CEN Standards website by just Googling CEN TC 250. On standards in the construction sector from an Irish perspective, you can visit the NSAI site. Again, just Google NSAI Construction Sector. Here you will find a useful database of standards related to the Irish construction sector. Thank you for listening, and I hope this webinar was of interest and of benefit to you. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me directly at the email address at the bottom of the screen.